So if you have trouble building roofs or coming up with the right roof for your house, this video should help you quite a lot. Now let's get into the actual tutorial. So something a lot of people do when they start building their roofs is they put the actual framing of it in the exact same block as the framing of the house. Don't do that. It gets rid of pretty much all depth. So instead put it out one more block, which should be able to add more depth and make it feel like it's more of a roof and not just a continuation of the wall. You see, a roof can really tie a build together. Even if it's just a rectangle, this roof is able to really give this thing like a true center point to the house, and it's able to more define what the house is supposed to look like. As you see, a roof is sort of one of the more important things to actually defining a building style, which, even though it doesn't quite sound right, is probably one of the most accurate things I can say about these. So when you're trying to build a roof, and this is just for your own style, try to think what style you're going for. Like, what are you trying to make the build feel like? And try to take that feeling and copy it into the roof as much as you can. This can truly end up giving your roof the most, like, amazing feel for your specific house. And it'll really tie it into your surroundings and, most importantly, the rest of the house that you're making. You always want your house and your roof and all of these parts to sort of fit together as well as you can, so just keep that in mind. Now you can see I've started building a dormer, and I've started sort of bending the frame of the house to make it match the roof. Now this sort of makes the roof feel a lot more streamlined and a lot more like arced and in line with itself. It makes it look a lot more comfortable with what it's holding on top of it, which is something that can really help. If a build looks uncomfortable, you gotta find the problem and you gotta change it. It's very important. Because if a build looks uncomfortable, then the person looking at it will feel uncomfortable looking at it. Now you may have noticed that I used full blocks for the roof instead of stairs. You see, you don't always have to use stairs, but you also don't always have to use full blocks. And it's mostly just whatever makes your build feel more like alive, and whatever gives it more personality. Now obviously the palette on this is a little, garbage, but that's mostly just because I wanted to focus on roofs. This palette is going to be used throughout the entire video, and I'm going to be saving this for the palette video, obviously, but just a little quick tip on this is that usually you don't want your roof to be the same color as your walls. Now we're going on to a new example now. See, this one is a bit more of like a Viking style, but at the same time, just looks straight up good. I love it. I've used it before on more fantasy builds, but again, it doesn't always fit, which is why you need to be careful of when you use it. So with this, instead of just building straight up like most people actually do, it's the easy and fairly quite a reliable way to do it. You would sort of make it bend in a way that like comes outwards from the house, which would, first of all, the way that I said that the last roof sort of gave more layers to the side, this does it way better. You see, the way this bends is something you kind of want to keep in theme for the entire roof the entire time. Because it'll sort of bend outwards, but if the bottom is just flat, it's going to feel more like a triangle, if that makes sense. With this, you kind of want it to feel more rectangular. You want it to have like those four sides that are at least somewhat equal. So instead of just having them go outwards and then a flat like trim on the house, you're going to want it to sort of like bend upwards in the middle too, which, I mean, yeah, you should. It would really be nice to almost always have that, though again, some roof styles do not complement that. Now again, you're also going to want to do this with the the framing, because if the framing is in line with the trim, I guess I'm gonna call it, the overhang, that's the word, yeah, then it makes it, again, feel a lot more synced and a lot more just like it's actually supposed to be that way, and that it's normal, and that it just fits right. Now, even though I'm doing it this way, that does not mean you have to. When it comes to the inside of the roof, like the thing I'm working on right now, it doesn't have to bend out with the roof frame if you're doing this style. It could also just be straight up, and then that would sort of give this inward feel to the top roof, sort of like it's a much larger overhang than usual. But again, you gotta find the right style for it. You could totally try experimenting with this. You could try both ways, and whatever one works best, you use. But if you are doing it the bending way, like I am, you're gonna want to make sure it really does look like it's bending. Or either that, like, you're also, if you're not doing that, you kind of just want to make it look flat. Like a flat surface is just going outwards, which would make it feel a lot more handmade. Okay, now with the roof, we're gonna try and stick with that, like, bending and arching feeling. You're going to want to keep the feel consistent with your roof type, no matter what it is. Doing this would give the center of the build a much more, like, dominating feel. I guess it's the only word I could think up of on the spot. Because it's sticking up and it's at the topmost, that's the part that your eyes are just going to focus on the most. And that is 100% something you want for the center of your build. Though I'm not sure if you want your eyes to focus on one specific thing. If you do, it's going to be the center. Now, something I do want to bring to attention that not many people really consider is how much detailing, at least of the logs, that you can, like, bring out purely due to the style of the roof. You see, the thing I'm doing right here could very well not work for many types of roofs, but it works for this one just because it has a similar style. Now that we're at least almost done, I'm not actually sure, we're gonna move on to a new type of roof. One that not only I, but many professional rustic and medieval builders use incredibly often. See, this is more of like a pointed roof, at least the framing. It goes up like a stair, 1 or 2 blocks for the first one, a stair, 1 block, only 1 block, stair, and then there's just that point that comes out. Now, this only works on 3-block roofs, like 3-block walls. Like, you know what I mean. It needs to be even, and with that, it needs to be sort of slim so that it doesn't, like, affect the height of it, because a style like this with like a 21 block wall is gonna reach possibly like 40-50 blocks high, and obviously that's not gonna look good. The whole reason you split roofs into separate pieces, make separate types of roofs, is so that the height makes more sense overall. Now, I did actually change the shape of the house a little bit, just because, again, around about 5 blocks, including the frame, is round about the limit of these kind of roof shapes. If I were to have a 7 block, like 5 blocks of wall and then an extra 2 blocks of frame, if you were wondering, it makes it feel really tall and really thick, which just doesn't work with this style in any way. So I would heavily suggest against doing that. Just keep that in mind. Now, obviously, filling in this roof is super easy. You just, though you do go like above the stairs, same block as the stairs for these, you just go 2 blocks up to the stairs, again up to the stairs, and usually 1 block below the top of the point. You'll see what I'm talking about if it's actually at that moment. However, something to give it a lot more character is you could, again, either rough it up, which I'm not going to do, just by placing slabs everywhere, making some indents, some overdents, I guess. Is that a word? I think it would be more like outdents. That makes less sense. Actually, it just sounds weirder. But also another way would just be by bending the shape, making it like go down in a slant when it reaches that little like sort of right angle to make it feel a lot more like smooth, a lot more of a smooth transition. Which, even though it is completely flat and it's basically just two boards, you want to make it feel like it is sort of like a right angle, but you don't want their eyes to be drawn to that area. You don't want all their focus to be on that one point. So you want to make it feel sort of like a gradual right angle, something that looks like a right angle, but also doesn't at the same time. Now, when it comes to styles, this roof works easily the best for rustic. However, it still works incredibly well for things like medieval, fantasy, Viking, maybe. I'm not very good with that style. Obviously not modern or futuristic. Those things are usually like flat roofs, things like that. I'm actually not entirely sure. I've never really built with those two styles, or at least not often. Now you can see that this roof doesn't actually take all that much to really complete it. But we're going to move on to a different style now, which is quite strange in my opinion. Not really bad, but in fact, in some cases, extremely nice, but something that is kind of odd and not really used that often. Now, I'm talking about the mushroom roof. Now, this doesn't really have to be an actual mushroom, but it's sort of like something that more is like integrated with the walls and sort of just comes up like a circular thing on top of it, which makes it feel a lot more like connected with the house and not like it's a separate part. But it is really hard to find a style or a place where you would actually put this kind of roof. You see, when you're building one of these kind of roofs, you want your house to be in a really natural state, or something that just feels more of like a house that's sort of just thrown into like a forest, or just some sort of purely natural house. Not really surrounded by any city or town. Maybe like a dwarf sort of thing. I'm not really sure. Again, don't really take much word for this with this specific style of roof. Don't take much of my word from this. I really almost never build with this. In fact, this is probably the first time I have. But it's incredibly fun to build with, and I would recommend trying it out sometimes. Again, you want to find the perfect place, and like the perfect place for every roof. And one of the best ways to do that is to experiment. You don't just instantly have a perfect thing. You have to see which ones work better, and the only way to really do that is to try them all out. Now you can see that I'm placing some of the full blocks with slabs, like 2 slabs, which is basically a full block, but sort of up half a block. Now you see, this sort of makes it feel a lot more gradually going up, sort of like more of a circle. It makes it feel a lot more, again, natural and like a mushroom. That's sort of the whole point of this style. Now overall, talking about palette again, I feel like this is a much more like hay styled roof. Building it with things like hay, maybe again obviously mushroom blocks, and much less like hard blocks, more flexible things, just to make it so that it's easier to believe in this like sort of bulby shape, sort of like a circle basically, really round, something that's really hard to get with wood, like a genuinely round roof. And with palette, when it comes to roofs, you're going to want to focus on how the shape of the roof interacts with the material you're using it with. You see, using things like freaking bedrock as a roof block, that makes 0 sense, because first of all, it just looks terrible just overall, and there's just so many bad things that come from it. Plus, it's not even obtainable in survival, so... Now, to finish off this video, I'm going to make a house where I take all of these roofing tips that I've given you. Not all the types of roofs. That would be incredibly difficult. And I actually haven't even done that. So I'm going to take all of these and I'm going to put them in to this one house to show you what kind of roof you can make. Now, obviously, I started off changing the shape because the better the shape, the more amount of roofs and the more detail and thought you're able to put into them. Now, I've started off by giving the front an A-frame, simple A-frame, really nothing that bad, but there's another wall, like another side, the one that came out next to it, that sort of has this gradual, like really low A-frame. Now that, technically speaking, wouldn't actually be an A-frame. Maybe. I don't actually know the real definition of it, but it's sort of more of a gradual and a low feel, which when you don't have really much of a high wall and you still want the wall to be visible is a really good choice to go with. Plus, there's the other one that I was making while talking about this, where it's sort of just like, it's one of those slanted roofs. There's no A-frame involved, there's nothing like that, it's just a complete slant. And that feels really nice, especially in rustic builds. Like, probably working best in rustic over pretty much anything else. And now I'm going to start working on the, again, one of the ones I did I think 2 roofs ago. I'm going to start working on the A-frame. This time, instead of just doing the same thing, going up until it meets a point, I'm going to start with 2 and then go to 1 block, which does make it feel really gradual and more like a cone shape than just a triangle. Now, overall, this does give a lot more height, which can definitely work and is fairly effective, but it really does make the building feel a lot more dominant and like sort of something that'll catch your eye. Now you can see that this really does give this building a really nice roof, and the shape that it adds is just, it's just not replaceable by anything else. Overall, with roofs, you've really got to think through what you want your style and the feel of it to be. There's no just instant way, there's no great way to just do like a simple trick and just know instantly exactly what roof should be there. It's more of a sense that you get after building a while, which is why you still need to practice. No tutorial. No tutorial can just instantly make you the world's best builder. It's, again, something you have to still practice. It's something you have to still understand. But there's no better way to start understanding and to start becoming this amazing builder than to see what other people have done. You need to, obviously, the roofs I've built here are not the only roofs that you can ever build in a house. There are hundreds more, and you can create many of your own too. Now, before you leave, remember that if you have any ideas or building tips that you want to know, just leave them in the comments section. I'll be looking over everything. Now, thank you all so much for watching. If this really did help, make sure you subscribe so you can see more videos coming out soon. It would mean the world to me, and it could really help grow my channel and possibly help others then too. So, again, thank you so much. I hope you all have a good day, and see ya. P.S. Check out my Fiverr link in the description.